Hello and welcome, and in today's video I'm going to share with you the top 10 creatures which you need for the island, so let's get into it. In at number 10 is the Deon, and there is no doubt that this is one of the most useful creatures on the island, namely for its bossing abilities. Obviously this isn't going to be the creature which is going to defeat any kind of boss. It does not have the melee damage to do that, but if you level up this thing's food stat like absolute crazy, and then you can use this thing to heal up your dinosaurs in the boss fight, which is a very useful thing, and especially because there's no things like stars on the island. Yes, you can transfer, but all the creatures on this list do natively spawn on the island, so don't expect any others. The Deon is pretty much your only option out there, and its ability is just so good and it is so easy to use. The only real downside being the amount of meat it consumes, and you're going to need to really pump that hunger, but it actually isn't too bad and it is definitely worth it. In at number 9 is the Bosur, and this creature is pretty much your best bet for doing any kind of cave runs which you'll find out there. Obviously underwater ones, this thing is not a land creature, and I think there are 2 underwater caves on the island, one of the artifacts being used for the Megapithecus and one of them being used for the dragon. I'm pretty sure there's only 2, yeah, there's only 2 underwater caves, and the Spinosaurus is going to be extremely useful in all of those cases. It has the damage to deal some of a fight. Yes, it isn't going to stack up to the Mosa, but the fact that this thing is immune to electric eels and jellyfish and all those things makes this one of the most safe creatures to take into the ocean, as most of the threats are now just not even able to do their main abilities. The only thing you really have to take into mind is the fact that they have a depth limit, but as a nice little bonus, these things will also passively make oil. Next up we have the Uranus, and again, compared to the Deon, the story is very similar. This is a great boss creature which I think is highly essential for the island, and it is useful on all 3 of those boss fights, and it definitely is one which you'll want to use at some point 100%, as obviously this isn't going to deal the damage in the boss fight, although you could use uses for that. That's not really their use case, and they're not going to heal up the creatures because that's the Deon's job. This thing will buff up all of those creatures with its all famous courage roar, and courageous you can also be if you drop a quick sub on the channel. It is always greatly appreciated. But it also does have the fear roar as well, which isn't particularly useful for bosses due to the size limit on the fear roar, but if someone's trying to raid your base in PvP on a Pteranodon, then you can use the fear roar if you have a Uranus on you, and they will have no chance in raiding you or scouting your base out whatsoever. Good PvP tip if you didn't know that already. In at number 7 is the Aloe, and this creature is a really great entry level carnivore on the island, and you may get somewhat angry with what I've put in the number 2 spot. If you know me already, you'll know what's in that spot, and you might want to put the Aloe in the number 2 spot and the creature which is in number 2 in this spot, and that is totally fine. You can form your own opinions on these dinosaurs. This is just my take, as albeit the Aloe is an amazing creature, inflicting a great amount of bleed damage and having a very useful pack buff. It just isn't my go-to carnivore of choice, as it is a little bit too out of reach in terms of the level in some ways of when it is unlocked, as it is a much harder tame than the other one that is on this list, obviously. And also, I kind of don't like the size as much. I prefer those smaller carnivores. I just feel like I have a little bit more protection, and albeit the Aloe is much more powerful than the creature which shall not be named, which is obviously in the number 2 spot, the aloe is just, I don't know, it's just not as appealing to me in a lot of ways. But I will definitely say that it is a truly amazing creature, which if you get the chance to on the island, which everyone realistically should, and especially on ASA as they are so easy to tame with the new baby dino mechanic, you really can't miss out on taming a pack of aloes. Remember, pack size is always 3, so if your pack aren't working, if you only have 2 aloes, get a third one and that pack buff will appear. Next up on the list we have the Rex, and this is pretty much your go-to boss creature which you can use on the island. Although in the honourable mentions section of this video there are a couple of other creatures which are great boss creatures but which sadly didn't make it on my top 10, but they may have made it on yours. Either way, back to talking about the Rex, you can kind of tell why this is such a great boss creature. It is a big hunking carnivore with great big teeth and a lot of power. And compared to a lot of other carnivores, I feel like I'm saying a lot, just did say it twice in a sentence there, but either way, compared to other carnivores, this thing's health is actually way higher than loads of the other options, making it the ideal boss creature for you to go with, as it is just such a balanced creature. While yes, it isn't the carnivore which deals the most amount of damage on the island, which is still allowed into bosses. The Giga I'm not counting here, as the Giga is sort of in a different league as a carnivore, but in terms of things like the Spino, yes, it will deal more damage, but its health is a lot lower, so the Rex is usually the go-to, and the Rex is significantly easier to tame, and its saddle also doesn't require silica pulls to craft, which can be a very big annoyance. Although at that stage of the game it isn't too much of a hindrance, it still can be a bit of one. In at number 5 is the Thyla, and there is a lot to say about the Thyla, and this creature is just so good at so many things, and it is actually one of the most versatile Ark creatures in my opinion. I've just done a top 10 on that recently, so if you go look on the channel you can see that top 10 if you're keen on it. And also in terms of the Thyla's abilities, and obviously apart from it just being versatile, this thing is a really great climber of all things. You saw it climb redwood trees there, but it can climb any kind of wall or vertical surface. Although meshing and meshes is a big glitch on ASA at the moment, so you can get yourself into some pretty sticky situations with terrain, and even fall through the terrain if you know that's your thing. But you know, ASA is still an early access game. They could have definitely worked on it a lot more though. But in terms of its other abilities as well, it isn't just a really great travel mount. Although it is a great use for it, it is also a really great carnivore, sadly not being allowed into boss fights. But I guess we have the Deinonychus on Valguero if you want a boss creature with kind of similar abilities to this, as that creature can also climb, but it is allowed into bosses, and in my opinion it is better than the Thyla, but that doesn't spawn on the island, so therefore it does not qualify for this list. But the main reason for its great attack is obviously that bleed ability which it has. Barely any other carnivores have this, which kind of doesn't make sense considering what they're doing and they're literally ripping right into a creature. You'd expect bleed damage to occur, but most carnivores don't even use that ability, and the fact that this has it is a huge bonus. Next up we have the Theri, and would it really be a list without the Theri here? This creature is just so useful for so many things, it had to be put on this list. The Freddy Krueger of Ark, with its saddle unlocked at level 69.
Nice.
This thing really does pack a punch in all of its abilities, namely its fiber gathering, which barely any creatures can stack up to, although the Moss Chops is a great shout in the early game. Sadly it isn't on the list or in the honourable mentions, But you know, I guess it got a little mention here with the Theory. But also the Theory is great at gathering berries as well, and so with wood and thatch too. And it is a pretty good meat gatherer as well, as this thing really does pack a punch in terms of damage. And it is the go-to creature for doing the dragon boss fight, as that boss is very unfair to all kinds of carnivores, and it is really nice to have this creature as a backup. Although the only real downside is sweet vegetable cake is the only way that you can really heal these things up in a quick manner. But if you have a Deon with you, that really shouldn't be too much of an issue. In at number 3 we have the Baryonyx. And would it really be a top 10 the island creatures list without this thing appearing at some point? This is by far the best caving creature on the island, and there is no competition at all. No creature can stack up to this thing in all of its abilities. It is just so good at caving. It has to be put on this list for all of its greatness in every aspect of caving. It's the right size and it deals a heavy amount of damage with a reasonable health stat, great stamina and great weight to go with it too. There is nothing which could really be improved about with this creature. Maybe apart from it not eating normal meat instead of fish meat, and the fact that it spawns in the swamp isn't great. But I'm happy to take those as some side effects for a creature which is just this good. It is almost too good to be true. And it also does have a right click attack in the water which can stun creatures up to the size of a Megalodon. And it is a very viable solution if you don't have a Spinosaurus for the underwater caves on the island. And this is the creature which I said when I was talking about the aloe, you may be a little bit upset at this being in the number 2 spot. But I absolutely adore the Carno in so many ways. It has to be put on the number 2 slot for me. The also amount of nostalgia I get from this creature is insane. And it has the bleed ability too, and although it doesn't have the pack buff, it is a much more manageable size, and also it is a very nice carnivore to control as well. Albeit the aloe has a nice turning circle and all of that, but the Carno really just feels much nicer to control, and in my opinion it is just a better designed creature. And also with its comedically small arms, you have something to laugh about with this thing too, and it just has so much character around it. And again, its saddle level being in the 40s or 50s, I can't remember. It's one of those. It's very achievable for any Ark player really, if you just put a little bit of effort into the game. It is a really great carnivore in the early stages of obviously mid stages as well. And you don't even need the saddle to fully utilize this creature. You can just have it following you around on adventures until you get that saddle, and you could be leveling up along the way to get it ready for when you first ride it. A very good, very good strategy actually, considering that trank arrows unlocked at level 21, and from there it is really easy to make a basic wooden trap and just trank this thing out. You really cannot go wrong with the Carno. But before we get into number 1, I have a few quick honorable mentions. And finally, in at number 1, we have the RG. And really, what did you expect? This thing is an absolute beast of a creature which really does deserve to be respected. And it is a go-to on all maps except Operation and Gen 1, as obviously flyers aren't allowed on those maps. But on all other maps, you need an RG really. These creatures are just that useful. They are the pinnacle of metal resource gathering, and when paired with something like an Anki or a Dodic, which I'm kind of going to tie into the number 1 spots here, as they really work well together as creatures, you have yourself pretty much the best harvesting creature combination which you could possibly have. The RG has weight reduction on things like metal, crystal, obsidian and much more. And paired with something like the Anki, which can gather insane amounts of metal, it really is set up for success. And the RG deals a reasonable amount of damage as well, has a great weight stat and a great stamina stat, which is actually why the stamina didn't even make the top 10 list, as usually I'll just go straight to the RG, in albeit the Pteranodon is a good tame, which is great for beginners and very beginner friendly. I always just go straight for the RG and don't even bother with the Pteranodon. And on top of that as well, its saddle acts as a portable smithy, which is a nice thing if one of your metal weapons breaks out on your travels, or your flak armor in cave runs, and also it has a nice little neat regen buff if you eat a dead corpse. This creature is amazing. In at number 10 is the Mosa. It is a powerful aquatic mount. The Mosasaurus is a massive, powerful aquatic dinosaur that serves as an exceptional underwater mount. It has high health, stamina, and damage output, making it a formidable force in underwater combat. Underwater exploration. With its ability to navigate underwater depths, the Mosasaurus allows players to explore the ocean depths safely. It can travel quickly and cover vast distances underwater, which is particularly useful for reaching underwater caves and high resource rich areas. And for combat superiority, the Mosa's high base damage and health make it a dominant force against other aquatic creatures, including other formidable predators like the Plesiosaur or the Lezichthyes. This makes it a valuable asset for defending underwater bases or engaging in underwater battles. Right, next up we have the Uranus, and the main good thing about this is its leadership roar. The Uranus has a special ability called the Courage Roar or Fear Roar. When it roars, it gives a buff to nearby allied creatures, boosting their attack power and resistance to fear effects. This can be incredibly useful in battles or when taming other creatures, making them stronger and more resilient. Then they also have utility in battles, due to which Courage Roar ability, the Uranus becomes a valuable asset in battles against other creatures or players. The buff it provides to nearby creatures can turn the tide in challenging encounters, making it a significant asset in PvP, player versus player, or PvE, player versus environment scenarios. It also plays a role in taming assistance. When taming other creatures, especially those that are difficult or have torpor-inducing effects, the Uranus can help by buffing the taming creature's damage output and resistance, making the taming process safer and faster. While the Uranus can't fly, it can be ridden and controlled. Its decent speed and ability to provide buffs while being riding make it a versatile and valuable mount for various situations. And it also has pack buffs. When used in conjunction with other creatures, the Uranus's buffs can stack onto other pack leader creatures, amplifying the bonuses give to the allied creatures, creating a formidable force. Next up we have the RG. Firstly, to do with transportation, the RG has a decent flight speed and stamina, making it a reliable creature for transportation. It can carry out a considerable amount of weight, allowing players to transport resources, creatures, or even other smaller dinosaurs across long distances. Combat utility. While not the most powerful combat creature, the RG is quite effective in battles due to its decent health pool, stamina, and melee damage. Its ability to fly allows it to attack from the air, making it useful for hunting, defending, or even assisting in taming other creatures. Resource gathering. Argentavis can be trained to harvest various resources efficiently. They're particularly good at gathering renewable resources such as hide, meat, and organic polymer from certain creatures. With their ability to carry large amounts, they can expedite resource gathering trips. Its ability to carry other creatures in its talons makes it useful for taming or relocating smaller creatures. This feature is especially handy when players want to tame creatures in challenging or dangerous areas and then transport them to a safer location for taming. Accessibility. The RG is relatively easier to obtain compared to some of the other flying creatures in the game. They're commonly found in various regions that can be tamed using a variety of foods, making them accessible for players at different levels. And base defense and utility. Due to their decent combat capabilities, Argentavis can be trained and used to defend a base or assist in resource gathering around the player's settlement, providing them an extra layer of security. In at number 7 is the Theory, and the first thing we can say is its gathering efficiency. One of the primary reasons for the Therizinosaur's popularity is its outstanding gathering capabilities. It excels at gathering a wide variety of resources such such as wood, thatch, fibre, berries and rare flowers efficiently. This makes it a valuable asset for resource gathering, especially for wood and thatch, which are essential building materials. Combat prowess. The Therizinosaur is a formidable combatant with high base damage and a rapid attack rate. When properly leveled and equipped, it can be effective in both defensive and offensive roles. Its ability to gather resources also makes it easier to collect the materials needed for saddles and gear, enhancing its combat capabilities further. To do with decent health and versatility, Therizinosaurs have a good base health pool, making them durable in battles, and additionally, they can be bred for higher stats, making them even more resilient. Their versatility in both gathering and combat makes them a desirable choice for many players. Herbivore and berry gathering. With its ability to efficiently gather berries, the Therizinosaur becomes valuable for players needing large quantities of berries for taming herbivores, creatures, or crafting consumables. Kibble production. They have the ability to collect large amounts of eggs from various creatures, making them ideal for egg farming and kibble production. Kibble is an important resource for efficiently taming higher tier creatures. In at number 6 we have the Spino. It is a powerful all-rounder. The Spinosaurus is a well-rounded creature with a high base damage, health and speed. Its versatile stats make it effective in various situations including combat, resource gathering and exploration. It is an excellent swimmer. Spinos are able to move swiftly through waterways and traverse both shallow and deeper waters without issue. This amphibious nature allows them to excel in aquatic environments and explore underwater areas. The gathering capability makes them a proficient gatherer, especially for specific resources like meat and hide. Their attacks yield substantial amounts of meat and hide from any creatures that they defeat, making them valuable for collecting these resources efficiently. They also have combat superiority. Again, Spinos are powerful combatants with a unique attack animation that covers a wide area, allowing them to deal damage to multiple enemies at once. Their high base health makes them formidable opponents in battles against both land and aquatic creatures. Also, they have accessibility and a taming ease. A Spino can be found in various regions across the Ark map, making them very relatively accessible to any kind of Ark player. While they might require some effort to tame during their strength, they can be tamed using meat, fish, and become valuable assets once tamed. Despite their large size, Spinos move relatively quickly, both in land and in water. This agility allows players to maneuver effectively during combat or exploration, making them useful for travelling across different terrains. And Spinos are often used in boss fights due to their high damage output and durability. Their versatility makes them suitable for various boss encounters, adding to their value in high-end game content. Overall, the Spinosaurus' combination of high stats, versatility, speed, combat prowess, and resource gathering abilities make it highly sought after and a valuable creature in Ark Survival Evolved for both solo players and tribes. In at number 5 we have the Megalodon, and the main thing they have is the Megalodons are relatively fast underwater and have good stamina. They allow players to explore the ocean depths and travel across water bodies efficiently. They can serve as reliable mounts for underwater exploration due to their speed and maneuverability. Also, in the early to mid stages of the game, before obtaining higher tier aquatic mounts like the Mosa or the Plesio, the Megalodon can be a valuable aquatic mount due to its moderate strength, ease of taming, and availability in various parts of the map. However, compared to some of the larger aquatic creatures like the Mosasaurus or the Plesiosaur, the Megalodon might lack in raw power and durability that the higher tier creatures possess. As players gain progress in the game, they might not opt for a less potent creature like the Megalodon. So why AI did you put this thing in at number 5 and the Mosa in at number 10? You really don't make sense. Well, ultimately, the Megalodon might not be as powerful as some other aquatic creatures, but its speed, accessibility, and early game utility make it like the best. It says the best ocean tame. Next up, we have the Golem or the Rock Elemental, and the main thing they have is durability and tankiness. Rock Elementals can possess an incredibly high base health pool and natural armor, making them one of the most resilient creatures in the game. They can absorb a significant amount of damage from both creatures and structures, serving as formidable tanks in battles or as defenders for bases. They also are potent attackers capable of dealing substantial damage to both creatures and structures. Their rock throwing ability allows them to attack enemies from a distance, making them them an effective siege creature in raiding scenarios. They also have the ability to gather large quantities of stone and similar resources by smacking rocks with their attacks. This makes them invaluable for resource gathering, especially for stone, flint and metal, which are essential for crafting and building. Placing a rock elemental within a base can act as a significant deterrent for potential attackers. Their immense health pool and damage output make them powerful defenders against raiders or hostile creatures. In PvP scenarios, golems are highly sought after for their ability to deal significant damage to enemy structures. Their rock throwing attack allows them to damage structures from a distance, making them effective siege creatures in raids. However, its movement speed is a bit of a downside. In at number 3, we have the Quos. It is an aerial platform. The Quetzal serves as a flying platform capable of carrying massive amounts of weight in its platform saddle, which allows players to build structures on its back, essentially turning it into a mobile base. This feature is invaluable for base building, resource transportation, and mobile operations. It also is very versatile. The Quetzal's combination of flying ability, high weight capacity, and the platform saddle makes it one of the most versatile creatures in the game. It can be utilized for various tasks including base building, resource gathering, taming, combat, and transportation. Due to this exceptional versatility and usefulness across multiple aspects of gameplay, the Quetzal is a highly prized and sought after Ark creature by many players and tribes in the Ark Survival Evolved game, and its unique abilities serve as a mobile platform, carry other creatures, transport heavy loads, and engage in combat, make it an indispensable asset in the game. What a lovely thing to say about a creature this slow. In at number 2, we have the Giga. The Giganotosaurus boasts incredibly high base damage and health stats, making it one of the strongest land creatures in the game. Its damage output surpasses most other creatures, allowing it to decimate opponents quickly. Gigas are highly sought after in PvP scenarios due to their devastating combat abilities. They can deal massive damage to structures and creatures, making them an exceptional siege creature during raids or base defenses. Gigas are massive creatures, instilling fear in both players and AI-controlled creatures. Their large size and aggressive nature makes them formidable adversaries in battles and excellent deterrents for potential attackers. Also, despite their immense strength, Gigas are also efficient gatherers, particularly for meat and hide. Their attacks yield substantial amounts of resources from the creatures they defeat, making them very useful for harvesting. Gigas are often considered endgame creatures due to their power level, and they can play a significant role in late game activities, including raiding, boss battles, and establishing dominance on the server. Overall, the Giganotosaurus' unparalleled strength, combat prowess, intimidation factor, and significance in the endgame content make it highly sought after and a feared creature in Ark Survival Evolved, often playing a crucial role in dominating the game's landscape. And in at number 1 is the Rex. Rexes possess high base health and damage stats, making them formidable fighters. They are strong attackers and can deal significant damage to both creatures and structures, making them excellent combat mounts. Due to their strength and health, Rexes are often used in various combat scenarios, including hunting other creatures, defending bases, engaging in boss fights, or raiding enemy bases. Their high damage output makes them valuable assets in confrontations. Rexes are relatively easier to tame compared to some of the higher other creatures, like the Giga for example. They serve as an effective combat mount themselves and can also be used to assist in taming other creatures due to their strength and damage output. Rexes are commonly used in boss fights due to their high damage output, durability, and effectiveness against bosses in caves or arenas. They're often a crucial part of strategies for taking down challenging boss creatures in Ark. Rexes can be found in various regions across the Ark map, making them relatively accessible for taming. Players can encounter them in many different biomes, and the relatively straightforward taming process makes them available for players at different stages of the game. When multiple Rexes are present, they gain a pack bonus that increases their damage output, making them even more lethal in battles. This pack boost can significantly enhance effectiveness in group combat scenarios. In both PvP and PvE situations, Rexes are highly valued for their combat capabilities. They can be used for base defense, raiding, battling other players or tribes, and dominating the game's environment. While not specialized gatherers, the Rexes can collect decent amount of hide, meat, and keratin from creatures they defeat, making them useful for resource gathering. Overall, the Rexes' combination of high health, damage output, accessibility, ease of taming, versatility in various gameplay scenarios makes it one of the sought-after Ark creatures. Not really sure about that pack buff though. Well, that was a video and a half, wasn't it? Not really sure about the pack buff on a Rex. AI definitely got that wrong there. And the Mosa and Megalodon, bit of a weird match. But either way, did AI choose right? And what is your favourite Ark Tame? And I will see you all later.